Hey, welcome to Marketing for Manufacturers 2, Engaging Customers and Prospects. This webinar is hosted by FuzeHub. Next slide, please. So what is FuzeHub? Well, if you're not familiar with us, we are New York State's statewide Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center, or MEP Center. Our mission is to help small to medium manufacturers, innovators, entrepreneurs grow by solving business and technical challenges. We work with a very extensive network of industry resources, experts in the public, private, and university sectors. And again, our job is to help you, the manufacturer, grow. So we coordinate statewide projects and other strategic initiatives. If you've ever been to one of our solutions forums, you probably have a good sense of what we do. If you haven't, you'll have to come to one. But we are a gateway to manufacturing news, trends, and programs. We are the one-stop shop that can help you solve that thorny challenge. Next slide, please. So a little bit before we begin in earnest with the webinar, if you have questions, please enter them in your control panel. There's a question box. In some cases, it may say chat, but that's the place to go ahead and enter the question that you have, submit them at any time, and then at the end, we will go through them with the panelists and get you the answers that you need. Next slide, please. So let's get started. Meet the presenters. My name is Steve Melito from FuzeHub, the bald guy over there on the left, and we are here with Joshua Whelan from 9-Pin Cider and also Mitch Tobel from CGT Marketing. Next slide, please. So let's get started with Josh. Josh, please take it away.
Hey guys, thanks for having me today. I approached to do this. I was really excited because I do a lot of things at 9-Pin, sales and sort of the nitty gritty stuff, just like the startup. But marketing is definitely my favorite thing I do here, and it's something I'm the most passionate about. So without further ado, let me just kind of introduce you to myself. So I'm originally from Westchester County in a little town called Pleasantville, New York, which is just north of White Plains. After graduating Pleasantville High School, I spent 4 years down at the University of Virginia, go Hoos. And I graduated in 2014 with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. So nothing to do with my future career besides I work with apple trees. Right after college, in fact, actually during college, my cousin, who is the founder of the business, his name's Alejandro, he was, starting out sort of the ideas for the business. And when I was a junior in college, I, went up to visit him in Vermont for a ski trip. And he gave me, a test batch of this, cider he was making literally in his basement. We have some old photos of the original batches of 9-Pin that it looks like a straight out of a scene from Breaking Bad, just set up in his little townhouse in Burlington, Vermont. And anyways, I spent the night drinking, this cider with him. And pretty much by the end of the night, I loved it so much. And there was something about it that was just like, this is going to be successful. I don't know really what I want to do after college, so might as well take a chance and move up to Albany after school and work for you. So that's exactly what I did. I helped out with the startup of the company, with the launch, February 28th, 2014. So I would travel up from school, any weekends I had free or weeks I had free. And then my official start date was May 23rd. About 2 days after I graduated, I traveled all the way up to Albany and kind of have never looked back. I started at 9-Pin, as our sole sales rep and marketing director and tasting room manager, and kind of like just your average startup, wearing many hats. But the company has grown about 600% in the past 5 years. So now my official title is Director of Sales, Marketing, and Business Development. So that's just a very fancy way of saying I have now employees that, do more of the sales rep stuff for me. I manage them. I spend more time being able to think about our marketing and our marketing strategies. Next slide, please. So as I said, just a little history about the company. It was founded by my cousin Alejandro Del Ferrell in 2013. We had a mission from the get-go. If you're going to start a company, you want to know what your company stands for. And what we wanted to stand for was supporting New York agriculture by producing quality craft ciders using 100% local New York State apples and fruit. And that's why we wanted to be based in Albany, right at the top of the Hudson Valley, which is one of the bigger crops of apples in the country. Little known fact is that New York State actually has the number one in apple variety. So we grow more types of apples than any other state. We're number 2 in actual apple production, just behind Washington State on the West Coast. So we're the number 1 state for producing apples on the East Coast. We moved into our production space in downtown Albany in the warehouse district in August 2013. Started renovating the building. Used to be an old marble cutting factory, so there was a lot of leftover dust. So that took a while. And when we were starting out, hard cider companies in New York State weren't allowed to operate their own retail space or like tasting room. So when we started out the business, we actually went in with the idea of just being a sole wholesale business. So we would find a distributor, we'd make the cider, find a distributor, and rely on all of our money coming from being on tap at bars, restaurants, and being sold in grocery stores. But as luck would have it, right around the time we were starting to make our first batches of cider, a bill was introduced into the state government by Andrew Cuomo, our governor, called the Farm Cidery Bill, that said that New York State ciders would be allowed to operate their own retail space and tasting room and go to farmers markets and whatnot, is with the one stipulation that we get 100% of our apples and pears from New York State orchards. Given that our mission was already that, it was pretty simple, and it was a no-brainer for us to apply for that license. And it got passed in early 2014, and we actually were the first farm cidery in New York State, which means we were the first cidery in the state to acquire that license and to be able to operate our own tasting room. So after making our cider in the fall of 2013, we had to let it ferment and age. We were able to open our doors on February 28, 2014. And, now we've grown we distribute in 4 different states: New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Next slide. So just a little bit of an introduction about our product. If you haven't seen us on the shelves or haven't tried us before, our claim to fame in terms of our product is that we're crisp, bold, and refreshing. A lot of people like 9-pin because we're very light. We're not too sweet. We use a white wine yeast to ferment the cider, so that kind of gives it more of like a champagne or Prosecco feel. We're gluten-free, which we put right on our labels. That's very big these days, and it was even bigger. The gluten-free kind of trend was even bigger when it was in 2014 when we were starting up. So that was a huge thing for us to market, was that all ciders are gluten-free. We're also pretty low calorie, about 150 calories a can. So that's very important these days, is to be light and low calorie. Health is a very big thing for that people are concerned with and consumers are concerned with. So we have 2 core products. We have our signature cider, which is our classic green cans. When people order cider in Albany, they sometimes just say, "I want a 9-pin," which means they want our signature. And we've built that we've built our brand around this one product we call our signature cider. We also produce our ginger cider, which is like our second most popular cider. We produce that year round. And then we have some seasonal cans that we produce. Like we have our Cedar Rosé right now. We have our peach tea cider coming out in the summer. And we like to keep it fresh. And then we have our experimentals. So these are the ciders that usually are only on tap in our own tasting room. Our tasting room draft menu changes constantly. Next slide. So who are our audience? So predominantly our demographic is female, ages 25 to 45. Incredibly important that you know who your demographic is, because and we'll get this I'll get this later in the slide, but you want to use different marketing strategies for your different audiences. As I said, we attract a gluten-free crowd. Given that we're in that 25 to 45 range, we're predominantly millennials, people looking for new experiences, trying something new. We do have some overlaps in the craft brewing industry, because cider is the way it's packaged in cans, on draft. We get kind of tied into the craft brewing industry. The kind of funny thing is that we're not in one of the biggest misconceptions of cider, and something that we try to teach people is that cider is not beer at all. It's not brewed. We don't have we're not a brewery, we're a fermentery, or what we call it a cidery, but basically we're a winemaking facility, but instead of using grapes, we're using apples. So we're more synonymous with wine, like a white wine, but because of that, it's because of the similar packaging to beer and a lower ABV, kind of like beer, we kind of get mixed into that crowd a bit. So like I said, we use different marketing strategies when we market to our different audiences. So, especially when we do stuff like events and stuff, or we have like a new cider coming out, for our millennial targeting, we'll use keywords like exclusive, limited. FOMO, fear of missing out, is a very real thing, especially for my generation. People want to be involved, especially, social media culture. They want to show all their friends that they're doing all the cool new things. So, we try to make things as cool and exclusive and whatnot as possible. Next slide. So our marketing journey. So when, I was, while I was still sort of in college, and I was helping out with the startup of the company, but I wasn't here full time, so we needed to hire a PR team. So we work with Relentless Awareness. They're an Albany-based PR team led by Joe Bonilla. If you're looking for a PR team, I would recommend them. So Relentless, in the beginning, they were controlling most of our social media and, contacting the press and doing press releases for us. So what they really help us with is our media coverage, from news channels to reporters, getting on radio spots. They're also very good at getting the politicians down here. So we have the mayor coming down here a lot. And, anytime you can get free publicity, it's extremely important. So, we've been advertising with WAMC, which is our local NPR station, for about 5 years, and WEQX, which is sort of like the cool alternative station, which targets our younger audience, more of the millennials, for about 3 years. When the company first started, social media was kind of put on the back burner. Posts happened, once or twice a week, but when I came on, that was my main goal, was to increase our social media presence. When we started, we had about 300 likes. Over the past 5 years, I've grown our Facebook following to about 17,000 Facebook followers and 12,000 Instagram followers. Twitter, we don't focus on as much. We find that, our audience uses mainly Facebook and Instagram. And we were actually talking right before, this webinar started, that, that market is starting to shift a bit. So, it's something that we're going to keep our eye on. But social media is your biggest marketing tool. It's free. You should take advantage of it because it's there and people are on their phones constantly. Next slide, please. So what do we do for our current marketing? So we want to always stay focused on what makes us unique, and what makes us unique is that we're New York's first farm cidery. No one can take that away from us. It was very advantageous that we got, and very fortuitous that we were able to be the first. We put that on all of our branding. It's the first thing you see when you get to the cidery, and you saw it on the last slide of Welcome to New York's first farm cidery. As I was saying before, we relied very heavily on our social media, and cute puppy pics never hurt, guys. We utilize our dogs constantly, and people love them. Cats are great too, but we're more dog people at Ninepin, so we end up using those. We end up using our four-legged friends a little bit more there. We use consistent hashtags that people have caught on to. Drink New York apples. That hashtag that we started now has over 5,000 uses. I checked out the other day, or I think it's like 4,000 or 5,000 uses. So that caught on great, and we actually have the trademark on Drink New York apples for merchandise and whatnot. We're also New York's first farm cidery, so we hashtag New York's first farm cidery because, again, we want to stay focused on what makes our brand unique. We still use radio advertising with WAMC EQX. We've done a couple other radio stuff before. Basically, minimal to no print advertising at this point. I feel bad for people that sell print advertising because they keep on always saying to us, oh, print's not dead, print's not dead. But in every experience we've had with print advertising, the signs point to yes. I mean, we've done print advertising where we've literally had coupons to the cidery, and we've opened the pages in our own cidery to the coupon, and people did not take advantage of them. So unfortunately, we don't really do any much with print anymore. But maybe the most important of all, next slide, please. Are our collaborations. Collaborations is one of the most important things a business can do. Consumers love seeing it when their favorite businesses, especially small businesses, are teaming up rather than competing, working together as a community. Everything kind of makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy. And we collaborated with a number of businesses in multiple ways. I could have talked about how we collaborate for an hour, but we've collaborated on beverages. So we make special ciders with another business's ingredients, using their whiskey barrels or wine barrels, or whatever we can get our hands on to make cider with. Or another beverage producer uses our cider to make their beverage. So we've worked with Albany Distilling Company did a apple brandy using Ninepin cider, distilling Ninepin cider. We just worked with Thin Man Brewing Company out in Buffalo, New York, to make a specialty blonde ale that they use New York State. We went out and pressed apples with them to make the beer. We've worked with foods, different types of food. So restaurants have used our cider to make, certain dishes or packaged food. We're working with a maple farmer right now in terms of making some cider syrup. They're going to use our cider and make syrup out of it. We've done merchandise, Ninepin candles, Ninepin soap, you name it. Pop-ups are huge for us in our tasting room. So we invite local restaurants to come to the cidery and set up a pop-up restaurant. That brings people here. The restaurant loves it because they can make the money and they get the exposure. And, we get some of the restaurant customers. And with any of these collaborations, there's going to be a certain amount of cross-promotion, which means basically, another company talks about Ninepin and how they're working with us, and we can attract their audience now as well because we're working with their, company that they follow, and vice versa. Next slide, please. So what's been our greatest marketing challenge at Ninepin? And I think that's kind of as I was talking about with millennials before. The question that we always get is, what's new? There's not a lot of brand loyalty these days. People are always looking for the next best thing. We live in such a fast-paced world at this point, and things are coming out so fast that it doesn't really allow people enough time to sit down and really, say, like, I love this product, and I'm just going to drink it. Those days are over. It's always, I love this product. What else does this place make? Or what else can I get? I always want to try something new. It's like, how many of you guys have gone to, your favorite local brewery or local, tap room, and you always check out and see if there's a beer or a cider or a wine on the list that you haven't tried yet and you want to give it a shot. Consumers get bored if your brand is stagnant. So you have to establish your own flagship. So for us, that's our signature, but we keep our consumers engaged by continually coming out with new ciders, seasonal ciders and cans, things on tap at the tasting room. Because if we were just to do our signature cider and that was it, people would get bored. We need to keep things engaging and exciting. The challenge is kind of how do you do this while maintaining your quality and sticking to your mission. The thing that we always take into account is we never want to replace long-term goals with short-term solutions. So if there's a trend happening, we don't want to sacrifice our mission and what we stand for and our overall goal for, adhering to a certain trend. So we always take that into account. I'll repeat that again, never replace long-term goals with short-term solutions. Next slide, please. So what's been our greatest marketing success? So I would say our greatest marketing success is our 26er challenge. We started this in 2016. Participants were required to drink a new cider every 2 weeks. They would come to our tasting room, 929 Broadway in Albany. They would, order the cider, check in, and at the end of the year, if a participant drank all 26 ciders, they became a Ninepin 26er, which included, some amazing prizes, a party, T-shirt, customized metal ID card, early access to bottle releases, happy hour pricing for life, and believe it or not, a bunch of other stuff. The first year we had 330 finishers. In 2018, we had 670 finishers, and if anybody finished twice, as they did it both in 2016 and 2018, we do it every other year because we need a full year to develop the 26 ciders. The silver status, we call them silver status if they finish twice. And this did a number of things. One, it created an incredible loyal following. We have some of the most loyal fans, I think, in the world. People love coming to us constantly. And I mean, hell, we had 600 people last year that came to our cidery 26 times. But it also kind of solved that problem that I was talking on the slide before about what's new and keeping people engaged. I mean, hell, we released a new cider every 2 weeks that they could only drink at our tasting room. But at the same time, when they would go out into the market, they would drink our signature cider, which was what it was available on tap. And that's our flagship. That's our bread and butter. So we were able to keep our loyal customers engaged and excited while still having them try, go back to our flagship, our signature cider. Next slide, please. So what's on the horizon for Ninepin? We're always staying tuned with our market, seeing, we do have to see what the trends are. We keep an eye on what our competitors are doing. I think that, for our future, we're looking to more expand our retail presence, like adding more food options. We know consumers these days want to go out and not just have a drink, but want to have a meal with their drink with with their, with whatever they're drinking. Hold on. Sorry, my computer just hold on. Went out for a second. There we go. So some other things that we're working on. We just launched our new, well, it's not Nine Pins, but it's a side project that a couple of us are working on, a new nonprofit called the New York Urban Orchard project. And it's basically a nonprofit where we're going to be, we've already planted one in Washington Park in Albany, but we want to plant different orchards in urban settings across New York State to aid with education and agritourism. We just released our 9-pin Pride cans this past weekend, so it's a new label, and part of the it's a rainbow label, and part of the proceeds are going to an LGBTQ outreach center in Hudson, New York. And then of course there's our 26er challenge in 2020 that we're preparing for right now. Next slide, please. I think is that it for me? Yeah, I think that's it. So are we saving questions towards the end, right?
Yeah, I think we'll save questions towards the end, although right now, Josh, I sure would like a 9-pin cider. That was great.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I'll be here at the end for any questions.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll head over now to Mitch Tobel from CGT Marketing. Mitch, please take it away.
Thanks, Steve. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Josh, great job. I'm looking forward to tasting some 9-pin as well. And I'm wondering if I could do the 26er all in one night. Not sure, but that would be a tough one. Anyway, I'm a marketer. We're a marketing agency. Been doing this for quite some time. Started building websites in '97, immersed in social media in 2003. I also teach marketing at Hofstra University. I run workshops through there on all the social platforms. And one of my firm's specialties is manufacturers, industrial marketing. And although Josh did a fabulous job, his marketing is really focused on the consumers as a pull-through. I'm going to be talking as manufacturers to help manufacturers, which is what we also do, market nationally. Next slide, please. You can roll it. So today's environment is quite fascinating. This is what traditionally, what a lot of people grew up in, where marketing was really top of funnel. If you can go to the first line, please. So which we euphemistically call tofu, top of funnel. There's tofu, mofu, bofu, middle, bottom. So marketing really was focused on the top of the funnel. Sales actually came in more after marketing was done. There was some generated awareness. If anybody remembers the magazines with the bingo cards, some of our clients who are older folk harken back to those days. Well, those days are pretty much gone. You can keep rolling page. Your company owned the brand. What that means is you controlled the message. You controlled the conversation. And it was very sales intensive with large sales rep networks, direct sales associated with sales reps. Next slide. Today, we have a totally new paradigm where marketing really does the heavy lifting, and it does a lot of work. So your marketing has to be relatively comprehensive and intuitive for that target market. As Josh said, he's clear about the demographics and the people who buy their cider, so do you, are the people who purchase your stuff. So what's fascinating about this new paradigm is that because of technology, your prospects and customers own your brand and message. Now, this may be a hard thing for some people to wrap their heads around, but in fact, we have technology, and a lot of email recipients block images. We have caller IDs. We can block or not pick up the phone. We have ad blockers on our browsers. So prospects generally decide what they want to see and what they don't want to see. Essentially, they own your brand. Now, what this means is that your prospects essentially sell themselves, what I call a self-serve website. They go on your website and they need the information, whatever stage of the funnel they're in. They're actually selling themselves on you. And if you go to the next slide page, you'll see in this latest research from IEEE Global Spec that the light blue area, 65% of industrial buyers want to search on vendor distributor websites before they even talk to a salesperson. So what does that mean for the company? The company itself, your company, the manufacturer needs to understand that your website is your selling environment. It's not just for putting up data sheets. It's for putting up stories. It's for putting up scads of information. Drop the curtain, let people see what you do, because that's what the buyers want. They want complete information because they are making decisions. As a matter of fact, every client I walk into, I ask them, are the phone calls coming into your office more sales ready than ever before? And to a person, they've all said yes. Like, yeah, you're right. How did you know? Well, this is why. Next slide, please. This is really the hardworking slide of the bunch. What I tried to do is to make it relatively simple in the time I had about what actually is working that we have found that's proven to work. First, obviously, is the website. It's got to be fast. What does that mean? Every second that your website is sped up, your conversions actually increase. I've heard as high as 20%. I'm not so sure that's true, but it does increase. It also has to be easy to find, which means that SEO is critical important. The keywords that you choose, now it's not words that you choose, but your buyers use to find your stuff, have to be optimized on your site. Your site has to use best practices for conversion. Lead forms, phone number in the upper right. There are all kinds of conventions that we have found that work to increase conversion. So the question I often get asked is, Mitch, what's a conversion? Well, conversion is anybody taking any action on the site other than clicking to another page. They actually interact with the site, whether they fill out a form, they download a piece of content, they sign up for something, whatever it is, they convert. Now, this leads me to the content itself, which is generally the number one hurdle that manufacturers have, is creating great content. They get caught up in the data sheets. They get caught up in the specifications. Content can be so much more than that. It needs to be. It needs to be educational for it to work really well. Low friction means that any form on the site, you need to put a minimum of asks on that form. Name, title, email, that's it. Keep it as low as humanly possible. I know that all the marketing folks watching now, or the sales folks that are watching, want a lot of information from a customer, but you need to remember that your website is generally the first interaction someone will have with your brand. You want them to want to sign up. So that leads me to content, which I mentioned just before. Your content needs to be educational. What are the 5 problems that people have? What are the pain points that your customers have? Your sales reps who talk to your customers now can tell you exactly what some of those issues are. Very often we interview, when we start with a client, we interview the salespeople, the top sales reps, to get information from them on what the pain points are in the industry. What are people looking for? Chances are those are the questions you need to answer with your content on your site and through any social networks that you go to. So a bit about selling into companies. If you're a manufacturer that is making a large equipment or supplies that are of a large quantity, a large purchase dollar amount, if I may, there's going to be more than one person. So within a company, there are centers of influence. Could be a purchasing manager, could be the CEO, could be the top engineer, the design engineer, the quality person, whoever is involved with this purchase. You need to know and adjust your message to each one of those people. They each have their own specific needs and desires from buying your stuff. So content needs to do that. Now, I'm going to go to the key element here in this new paradigm is your digital footprint. Your digital footprint are all the channels, all the things that you do online to attract and give information to buyers and potential prospects. So on the next slide, if you would, Paige, this is what I would say a fairly typical digital footprint for a manufacturer. Every yellow circle is a channel with which you use to market the firm. The green area is you need to constantly monitor and listen, and there are tools out there. I could spend another half hour on just the tools itself. You need to nurture and convert those interactions from all the social channels and drive everybody to the center, which is your selling environment, your domain. This is the new paradigm. So the yellow circles may comprise a different set of tools for your firm. This actually is from a manufacturing firm that we do business with, and they use SEO as a lead device. YouTube for educational videos. By the way, YouTube is the #2 search engine online, if you didn't know. People go there to learn how to. Email is a wonderful tool to use if it's used correctly. You always have to approach it from not blasting anybody, but sending people stuff. Facebook is a great tool, yes, even for manufacturers that are selling to design engineers, if for the very minimal usage of it is to use the technology that's available within Facebook. And if I can just take a moment to spend some time on this, there's latest research that just came out showing that Facebook has sort of reached its saturation point. And in the younger audience, the Generation Z, they don't have a good name for it yet. After the millennials, they actually don't go on Facebook. There's been a reduction. Be that as it may, Facebook is still a powerful tool. It is great from a technology standpoint. And to give you an illustration on that, if you drop what's called a Facebook pixel code onto your website, anybody that comes to your website is tracked by Facebook and matched their personal profile, and they will build a list. You're not able to see the people, but you can use the list to advertise to. So you can actually set up audiences for pages on your website. For instance, if someone's in the awareness phase, generally they're going to look at the homepage. So you track all the visitors to your homepage. If someone has more interest in your product or service, they may start looking at products. They may start looking at data sheets. They may read the About Us page, which is a critical page for a manufacturer. So you can set up an audience that tracks those pages for the second stage of the funnel. And finally, someone goes to a contact page that shows tremendous interest. They're exhibiting online behavior that would indicate that they are a potential customer for you. So set up an audience for that. What happens is Facebook collects those information, and you're able to then advertise to those audiences through Facebook at an incredibly effective cost per click. Now, what's also exciting about Facebook is that they develop lookalike audiences. What that means, let's say you set up an audience that only goes to your homepage. You can ask Facebook, once it has some sufficient data, to create a lookalike audience of those people that have gone to your homepage. So now, because, by the way, Facebook knows everything about you if you're on there, it's often said that if you asked your significant other to create a profile of you and asked Facebook to create a profile of you, Facebook's will be more accurate. Now, that's a little scary to some. For a marketer, it's pretty cool. So what that means is that the lookalike audiences, they're finding people who either don't know you're around, are not aware of you, never been to your site, but match the demographic, psychographic, and behavior profiles of the people that have come to your site, thereby expanding your audience and actually taking rifle shots of advertising to that audience on a pay-per-click basis. So it's a very exciting technology that's been around for a while, and unfortunately, countries outside of ours have used it against us. Be that as it may, it's a wonderful tool for marketing purposes. LinkedIn is hands down the best sales tool online that I know of. Only place I know is before a meeting, you can actually pull up the person's profile and see what you have in common. It is also an excellent marketing tool. And in the case study or the case history that I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes, you'll see why. Then we have online PR, which is also very effective in driving traffic, directories, which is critical, and pay-per-click advertising, not only through Facebook and LinkedIn, but using Google and also display ads throughout the publications. Next slide, please. So I have a case history, Narda Microwave. They make a very exciting product. Hold your seat now, integrated microwave assemblies. I'm excited. Hope you are too. So we were challenged. They wanted opportunities for the sales reps to start conversations with prospects. Now, their process was for the reps not to sell the prospect, but to get them interested enough to have conversations with their in-house engineers, because designing an IMA or integrated microwave assembly is a very extended process. And NARDA has actually proprietary unique technology to make 5 components into one tiny little box. It's very cool. So what we did was we did a cross-channel, fully integrated marketing program. We used LinkedIn, automated email, and print. Even though print I know is kind of dying, there's a segment of the population, which are the baby boomers, that still enjoy a magazine. And it's great for awareness, not necessarily for direct leads. So let me take you through what we did for them so you can understand what how this works. Page. Thank you. So we did an ad. This is a tiny little ad in LinkedIn. We created content, which was the first step in the process. Again, through an understanding of and demographic and psychographic understanding of their customers and prospects, we spoke to their in-house engineers and found out that most design engineers at companies have really no idea how to make integrated microwave assemblies and leaned heavily on NARDA's engineers. So there was some fear around it. So we created content that was the 5 mistakes to avoid. We did a small LinkedIn ad. Page. We also used email and print in some key industry publications. This went out, and what did they do is they clicked learn more at the bottom. By the way, learn more pulls way more than click here, just as a little tip. They clicked learn more. They went to the website to learn more. And the web landing page has very low friction. It was first name, last name, email. That's it. Nothing else. And as you'll see on the next slide, we got a little deeper in it when we established some type of interaction with the prospect. Page. So we sent them the content, the 5 mistakes to avoid. Wonderful piece of content, educational, beautiful. And we followed that up. Page, if you can hit the button. We followed that up with an email. This was a qualification email, which asked them specific questions that would help the company qualify these leads. Do you specify them? How often? Do you outsource them? So based on their answers, we developed this planogram that we actually automated so that this process started to run by itself. Page, the next slide if you could. So this looks a little bit intense. In actuality, it's not, but it was based on their online behaviors. What happened? After they got the email, the 5 mistakes, and if they did not open, they got it again with a different subject line. And by the way, to maximize deliverability, I highly recommend, if you're sending emails, once you send it out, wait 5 days, send it again to the people that did not open, but with a different subject line. The bump is actually really good. And as you can see, 5 days, 2 days after response, all geared towards shuttling the lead to the appropriate representative or manager. This was part of this was one path for an automated lead qualifying program we designed for NARDA. Next slide, if you could. So the results were fantastic. The client loved them. The CTR's click-through rate over 27%, which is fabulous for a manufacturer. We had an incredible lift in the in website traffic, but more importantly, we actually generated 15 to 20 qualified leads on a monthly basis, and this was qualified leads for the sales reps. Because what we did with each lead, we actually scraped LinkedIn for more information on exactly who these people were and what they did. So we actually gave them complete information on a per lead basis. Now, I don't have any sales information, but our job was to generate qualified leads with what we did. So we're very pleased with the results. And I think that's it. Thank you. I guess this is the question part, Steve.
It sure is, Mitch. That was great. So now we're going to head into the Q&A part of the webinar. If you are out there and have questions, if you'd like to enter them into the chat box, I'll then look through them and pose them to Mitch and Josh. There already are a few that have come through. Mitch, I'll give you a chance to maybe have a cup of coffee or just take a little break for a second. And Josh, the first question has come in for you, and it's about how did you acquire information on your demographic? And I think what they're talking about is you have a slide where you have concluded that you have a certain age group and they're women. How did you get that information?
We actually got it through Facebook, and Instagram. They allow you to have, as a business profile, they actually allow you to see who's interacting with your posts more, that's basically how we got the age group. I mean, it's also by general, the cider market in general. There's been extensive research that been passed around, Nielsen data, that as a whole, this is we're not as a cider company, we're not unique in our demographic. As a category, cider just attracts females, more so than often 25 to 40. We've also done some market research ourselves, sending out surveys to our listservs and whatnot. So we've acquired that information in a number of ways, but mostly it's by social media interactions that we've seen, social media data that Facebook and Instagram have supplied us, and just by general, we take note about who shows up to our events, and we see, it's mainly female. We also can just see that out in the market as well.
That's great, Mitch. This is such an important question. I'd like to have you take a crack at it as well. And in terms of the industrial space, I know I see a lot of companies that are guessing at who their audience is. We think it's engineers. We think they're, male between ages 35 and 50. But how do you really figure out who your audience is and what the demographics are?
Well, it's really interaction, Steve. What we found is we start with a client. We actually call their customers, generally anywhere from 10 to 15, and have anywhere from 10 to 20 minute conversations each with a specific questionnaire tool to gauge their perception of the firm and of the industry. And in that, we get an understanding of exactly who they are from a demographic and behavioral standpoint. In addition, there is existing secondary research out there that actually can prove that. So very often manufacturers need to be cognizant of the centers of influence within the companies they're selling to. We've gone so far as I've actually gone on the road with sales reps to clients just to get a feel and understanding. Marketing goes into a passive environment you have absolutely no control over. So the more you know about the customers, the better you are. We actually take the time to do buyer personas, which is a very effective tool as well.
Great. And Mitch, I had another question come in. This is about the case study that you shared. And the question is, what is an average click-through rate for a manufacturer on an email campaign?
So Most of the manufacturers we dealt with generally are anywhere from 5 to 20. I know it's a big range, but 15 to 25%, not 5, 15 to 25% is an average range. Now, an interesting note about that, if I may, just take a couple of minutes on this, because email to individuals working at OEMs, which is a common target market for manufacturers. I'm talking about real industrial manufacturing. The target market is generally have incredible controls on their email. And what we found is that a lot of engineers gave us their personal email, and they looked at the emails that we sent them on the weekend. So although prime time is Tuesday, 7:30 a.m., we saw a bump on opens on the weekend, Saturdays and Sundays. So what I would do is look at the open rate, which is always an important tool to see how your subject line is working, but also the click-through rate is actually indicative of the behaviors that you want. We use, I hate to be a little lengthy on this, but it's something that is, I find very important, is that if you have lead scoring tied in with your email, you're able to segment your audience and note online behaviors that would indicate potential sales qualified leads. So 15 to 25% is the average range that I see.
Okay, great. Josh, well, first, there's a question that came in. I logged in late. Will the recording be emailed out? It won't be emailed out, but there will be a recording available on the website. I guess in that sense, it will be emailed out because we'll send you the link and let you know it's live. So you're not going to miss anything there. Josh, you mentioned that you have an incredible number of Facebook followers. I think it was 17,000.
17,000. Yep.
Okay. But you only sell in a certain number of states. So how do you target locally? Because you can't sell to California or Texas or whatever.
Well, I mean, those 17,000 are coming from the states that we're selling in. That's a localized audience in itself. I mean, predominantly our audience is coming mainly from the capital region in New York, Albany, Troy, Schenectady, Saratoga. That's predominantly where it is. The next biggest market we have in terms of, our Facebook followers. And once again, I mean, Facebook and Instagram, they offer you all this data, so you can see where your audience is. Our next biggest, obviously, market is New York City, Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. Then it goes to Buffalo, and then Boston. So mostly, I mean, it's within states that already carry us. Now there is sort of a balance between, how we use our social media, in terms of marketing events that are happening just at the sitery and then marketing products that are out in the market. So, you need to be cognizant of making sure, at least we need to be sure that, we're giving each its own attention. But we find that most of our marketing mainly helps our tasting room sales. So that's kind of how we've been leaning to lately, and doing more events, talking about things on tap in the tasting room. Because not only are we a wholesale, people will buy us in the market, but we're also a tourist destination. When people are driving through Albany on their way to the Adirondacks or on their way out to Boston or Buffalo or down to New York City. I mean, Albany's kind of cool. It's kind of at the crossroads of 87 and 90. And we've got, the Hudson Valley, New York City to the south of us. We've got the Adirondacks and Montreal to the north of us. We've got, Syracuse and Buffalo and Rochester to the west of us. And then we've got Massachusetts, Hartford, Boston to the east of us. So, if you're traveling to any of those places and you need to travel on any of those roads, you're going to pass through Albany. So we have a lot of people that actually stop by, and stop at the cidery because, they've heard about us, they've seen us, they want to come here. And I owe a lot of that to our, social media advertising. But when you can, there's also a way, you can pay for advertising on, these sites with Facebook and Instagram. We do sponsored posts and whatnot. And that you can actually choose in the ad where you want that sponsorship to pop up. So if it's anybody living in Albany, we'll do it. If it's a tasting room event, we'll just target people really in the Albany, Troy, Schenectady area. But if it's an announcement about a product that's going to be distributed throughout the 4 states we distribute to, then we'll expand that audience to different major cities in each state.
That's great. So you're not just satisfied with we have 17,000 followers. You've actually looked at the insights and the analytics and know something about them. That was a great answer.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's it's key. It's key. Because I mean, we could have 17,000 followers, but if they're all in California or across the world in China
or Bitcoin or whatever, right?
Exactly.
What's interesting about Facebook too, if I can add, is that it allows you to advertise people that are traveling to the destination that you're advertising in as well.
Yep.
Excellent. So Mitch, I have a really hard question for you. I hope you're ready. You had mentioned that your sales reps can tell you, the marketer, what the pain points are.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get sales to talk to marketing and have that conversation? They're busy. They have to sell. They have to, hit a target, make a quota, get commission.
Right. So I got a couple of things that I do. I certainly meet with them. And what's funny is salespeople don't, if you ask them for pain points, they don't really know cognitively, like right away, what they are. You have to kind of ferret it out. That's why the real difficult ones, I tag along on the trip. I tag along on a couple of sales calls. And in that sales call, you watch the customer, how they react to some of the things the salesman is saying, and note the type of questions that are get asked. If you have in-house sales CSRs at the manufacturing side, ask them to write down what the top 5 questions they get asked, or really top 3 questions they get asked on a regular basis. You could do that with the sales rep too. What's a common question you could ask? Now, the sales rep is often going to say, how much? How much is it? And you have to sit there and nod and say, okay, and get beyond the price issue, because the price is not the issue that marketers need to understand the customers about. It's actually the points that they're concerned with. Each of a manufacturer's potential customer has a challenge. They have a goal they want to achieve using your product or service. What is their challenge in getting to that? And those challenges are the gold that allows marketers to create the great messages. So I would say perseverance with a salesperson, maybe tag along on a sales call, become their friend and try to get them to understand that as a marketer, you're here for them. I'm here to make your job easier. I want to give you leads that are warm, inviting, and are waiting for you. And any salesman hears that, they're going to love you for life. So that would be my answer.
Okay. All right, good. It's a good one. So Josh, I've got time for another question here before we move to the wrap up, and it's about hashtags, and you've invented some. You've been very successful with them. How did you get people to use them?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Sure. So you've got some hashtags that you came up with.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yep.
how did you get people to use them? I mean, you made them up. They didn't exist before. So how do you get a buzz around those hashtags and get people to use them?
Well, I mean, in a number of different ways. First of all, I think that the most popular hashtag that we've created is the hashtag Drink New York Apples. And that has just gone on, we've sort of embraced it. It's on a lot of our merchandise. It's on the back of our t-shirts and sweatshirts. We use it in every single Instagram post. We always use that hashtag. And we post constantly. We post all the time. We post once a day. So every time there's a 9-pin post, somebody sees that hashtag. It's just really just about consistency. And making sure you're using that certain hashtag all the time. Make sure it's something that, easy enough for people. It makes sure it gets your message across, but it's also easy enough for people to duplicate. You don't want a hashtag that's like 25 characters long. Drink New York apples is short, sweet, and to the point. So.
Okay, good.
That's what
good. All right, so it's an integrated marketing strategy. It's not just a one-time thing. I put that hashtag out there one time. The world's going to use it.
Yeah. You got to use it, yeah. If you want to create your own hashtag, you got to continually use it. And then you can also, we also sometimes for certain other hashtags, like we're doing hashtag 9pin Pride for the Pride cans we're releasing. We're posting saying, hey, use the hashtag 9pin Pride and show where you're drinking your cans. And, those can sometimes be effective, but the really effective one we've ever been able to, utilize is the Drink New York apples, and that's just because we use it for every single post and just constantly.
Great. So I know we're coming up on 11, but we just got a question, and this is one that is really important. Just have to make sure that it gets in here. Mitch, I'll start with you on this. Is there a formula for developing a marketing budget?
Wow, great question. Yes, there are several. One is based on history, percentage of gross sales. But to me, that doesn't take into account where the company wants to go. And that could be anywhere from 5% to 10% of gross sales used for marketing. That's a common, easy to use formula. The better way to do it and the more comprehensive is to establish a revenue goal for the company, find out how many customers it's going to take to get there, what the gross profit is on a per customer basis, and then talk about that with the CFOs, CEOs on what are they willing to spend to get each customer, because it changes the mindset a bit. So they understand that marketing is an investment, not an expense. So if the money that is required to get to the goal is too much for them to afford, then what they do is to change their goals, make them more realistic. So it's a great way to have great conversations within a firm about what to spend and what the goals are. Because as marketers, I want clear goals. I want quantifiable goals. Tell me what you want, and I can tell you what you need to get there. If you can't afford that, then we have to change what you want. So it's good conversations are lead to great budgets. So that would be my take on that.
Great. Josh, I'll give you the last word on this one. Is there a formula for developing a marketing budget?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add to that. Keeping your goals in mind. The only thing I would say is, not to skimp out. I mean, marketing generates sales. So, you need to invest wisely in it, and you also need to, invest enough in it. I can't give, I think, Mitch is sort of best, so I can't give too much of a better answer than that. But what I would just say is, don't brush away your marketing budget in any sort of, business development meetings, because it's so important to the company. And, it's also important, I'll just add this, it's also important within your marketing budget to not just have like some, baseline number, but really think about where, say your marketing budget, $100,000 for the year. Where's that money going to get allocated to? Are you spending it on the right places? Looking at your like Mitch already said this, but looking at your history of what you spent marketing on, what's worked, what's not worked. Are there new opportunities? Are there new opportunities that you want to try to replace maybe sort of a stagnant or failing marketing scheme? So there's a whole number of ways. I don't have an exact formula for how we do it. It's like I said, it's kind of been based off of history and what we've spent on the past and what we have in the budget overall for the year.
Great. All right. Mitch Tobel from CGT Marketing, Josh Whelan from 9-Pin Cider. I thank you very much. Paige, next slide, please. I think that was the end of the slideshow. So in conclusion, you've been listening to Marketing for Manufacturers 2, hosted by FuzeHub. We thank you for joining us. If you have questions about getting help for manufacturing, if you have needs that are business or technical in nature, contact FuzeHub. And the way that you can do that is go to our website, which is fuzehub.com, FUZEHUB.com, and look for the Solutions Program menu. And then when you get to that menu, look for a form that you can fill out online. It's easy. It just asks a couple of questions. Let us know what you need. And a member of the Solutions Program, probably me, will then get in touch with you. So again, thanks for listening.
Thanks for having us, guys.